We're going to look at intrinsic back muscles now, or to give them their proper term, the epaxial muscles. If you want to understand where the term epaxial comes from, and look at the other video of epaxial versus bipaxial muscles. I'm going to start off just by drawing a section through a vertebral column. We've got a neural arch there on top of a vertebral body. We've got a transverse process. There's a neural spine or spinous process. There we go. We've got a rib attached here. I'm not going to draw all the rib. There it is. On that side, it's incomplete as well. Okay, so our epaxial muscles are arranged in three basic groups. The deepest group of all are the ones that go from adjacent vertebrae, so they lie here between transverse process and transverse process, or they lie here between spinous process and spinous process. They're very deep, they're very short. The intermediate layer are the transversus spinalis group. They sit just about in here, and then the more superficial ones are the erector spinae group, and they sort of sit somewhere around there. If you think about a pork chop, the eye of the pork chop or the lamb chop is the transversus spinalis group. The butcher will cut the bones here and there, and then this part here is what you see at the chop, and the eye of the chop is the transversus spinalis group. So let's look at those groups in a little more detail. So the first thing we're going to do is draw up a diagram of the vertebral column. It's a diagram, it doesn't have to be accurate. That's the pelvic girdle down the bottom. Here are some transverse processes of lumbar vertebrae. Here are some transverse processes of thoracic vertebrae, cervicals, and the skull. The transverse processes of the thoracics obviously carry ribs. There they are. So if we're going to look at the erector spinae group, here, the most superficial, these ones, as we go upwards, the fibers go outwards. So this set of muscles here are coming from medially to laterally as we go upwards, and they're going all the way out to the ribs, because the bottom ones start on the pelvis, the ilium. We call those the iliocostalis group. So the ones that go from ilium to rib. The next set are these ones that go from the spinous processes out to the edge of the transverse processes. Yeah, and those ones are quite long, so they get called longissimus. And then we have the third set, which go from spinous process to spinous process. And because they go from spine to spine, we call those the spinalis group. And the last ones are the ones that go from spinous process and they go outwards to the skull, and they're only in the neck region, and that's splenius. So erector spinae has 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of muscles within it. Those muscles always start medially. They attach to the spinous process usually, or in the case of the bottommost iliocostalis fibers, they attach to the ilium, and they usually go outwards as you go up. The only exception to that is spinalis, where they come back in and attach back on the spinous process again. If we relate that back to our cross section, that means that these fibers are always attaching here at the bottom, and as they go up, they're going outwards. And if they're iliocostalis, they're going to attach onto a rib. If they're longissimus, they're going to attach onto a spinous process. If they're spinalis, they're going to attach back onto the spinous process here. So that's the first set, that's erector spinae. The second set And draw that in my vertebral column again very quickly. There we go. Numbers, thoracics, cervicals. Don't worry about the head this time. There's our ribs for our thoracics. The next set we're going to draw are the transversus spinalis group. Transverso spinalis. And as you can tell from the name, these are going to go from transverse process to spinous process. And of course that means that they're going the opposite direction to the erector spinae group. So remember, the erector spinae group tends to go outwards as we go up. The transversus spinalis are going to go inwards as we go up. So these ones right here at the bottom are sort of intermediate length. There they are, very big in the lumbar region. We call those multifidus. These ones here are especially large in the thoracic region. They're rotatories, they're quite short. And then these ones in the upper thoracic, cervical, and up to the head region are very long, so they start from transverse process and they go medially as we go upwards. And they go all the way up, and those are the semispinalis. So those are the three components of the transversus spinalis group. The deepest are the rotatories, then multifidus, and then the most superficial are semispinalis. But the contrast with the first group is that, as we saw with the first group, they tend to start medially and go outwards. This group start laterally and go inwards as we go up. And that's actually how you're going to pick the difference between them when you're looking at a prosected specimen. You're going to look at the orientation of the fibers. If they're traveling laterally as you go up the vertebral column, they're erector spinae. If they're traveling medially as you go up the vertebral column, then they're transversus spinalis. And it's the easiest way to tell the difference between them. Okay, the last group we'll just draw on the same one. We're going to draw that in blue. That's our deepest group. These only go from one vertebral segment to the next. These ones here going from transverse process to transverse process, like that, are going to be called intertransversalis. And these ones here that are going from spinous process to spinous process are going to be called interspinalis, and together they're the two parts of a group that are called the intervertebrals. So those intervertebrals are short, they are deep, and they're there to provide stability between the adjacent segments, and also to allow proprioception, that sort of stuff. The longer fibers, which we see as we become more superficial, they're the ones that actually control the sort of global movements of the back. If you want to visualize that another way, we can see that you have to have a situation where long and short fibers are arranged superficial to deep. We're looking at the vertebral column from side on here. So there's adjacent vertebral bodies. Here are the spinous processes, very diagrammatic. Okay. As we go, we're doing intervertebrals in blue. So here are intervertebrals, they're deep. This is our transversus spinalis group. So they're going like this. That would be rotatories because they're very short, or if we're going slightly longer, so we're missing out or skipping a segment as we go, then it's multifidus. So there's multifidus. That's rotatories. And if we're skipping lots of segments, then we're superficial and we're semispinalis. Makes sense to have the shorter fibers deepest. That's the basic setup of the epaxial or the intrinsic back muscles. So we've got three groups. We've got our rectus spinae group. Most superficial, we've got our transversus spinalis group in between, and then we have our intervertebral group deepest of all. And the way we're going to pick the difference between them is that if they go outwards as they go upwards, or they come back around like that, then they're rectus spinae. If they go inwards as they go upwards, then they're transversus spinalis. And if they go more or less straight, then they are intervertebrals.